Lawyers of Reddit, what is a detail that your client failed to bring up to you that completely lost you the case? A friend of mine is a lawyer, and he said that a client once turned up to court in the actual same outfit he was wearing in the burglary. When the CCTV footage come up in evidence, the client looked down to himself and was like, "Oh shit." Not a lawyer yet, but I clerked for a DA's office throughout law school. Obviously we don't have clients, but I'll never forget this kidnapping case I worked on. It involved two Asian male defendants who were both the same age and looked relatively similar. Witness is on the stand and is asked to identify where the defendant who pushed a newsie into his face is seated. It's clear the witness is having trouble differentiating the defendants. In a true moment of brilliance, one defendant raises his fucking hand and basically points to himself like, "Right here bud." Hands down the dumbest shit I'd ever seen. I thought his defense attorney was going to have a brain aneurysm. Unfair dismissal case. The client claimed to have been dismissed without reason or following procedure. After we had started the case, it comes out that not only was he given 3 written warnings, but he was also called in for a disciplinary hearing before his dismissal. Don't lie to your lawyer. Had a woman with an expensive fur coat and she claimed that the laundry ruined it. It was kinda ruined, but the laundry claimed those stains were already there. Judge ordered an expert opinion, lab, and the fur coat had traces of cocaine and other illegal drugs all over it. There was a raid at her place then, and her husband got convicted because they found several kilograms of drugs. Not a lawyer, law student, and not exactly what you asked for, but I feel like it fits here anyways. We read about a criminal case in which there wasn't enough evidence to convict the suspect, so the suspect was not guilty due to reasonable doubt, and he responded, "Thank you judge, I'll never do it again." DA went into appeal and Jude got convicted. It was a typical appointment/interview with the immigration committee in order to grant my client a residence permit. He was marrying a woman in my country with my country's nationality, and this is a legitimate reason to be granted a residence permit. So it was a typical procedure. At least that's what I thought. The committee is bored to death and we all want to be over with it, so they ask him all typical and boring questions, like how did they meet, where they live, etc. They ask these things to identify white/false marriages. At some point they ask him if he was married before, and he says yes, back in my home country, and I'm still married actually, never got a divorce. WTF. I was stunned. Double marriage is forbidden in my country. And he never bothered to mention this detail to me, neither to the other lawyer, when we asked him. He later told me he said the truth because he was afraid to lie in front of a committee. An honest and stupid man. I got all my money though, yet we had to find another way to gain a residence permit. Not mine, but a client forgot to mention to her lawyer that the reason for the divorce was because she was recording all her fuck sessions with her lover and sent it to her husband while said husband was attending her mother's funeral. Addendum. Just got back from an errand and was shocked by the amount of replies and questions. First up, adultery is considered a crime. The husband came to the funeral from another state while his wife was supposed to be there. He didn't find her. The video was sent to the husband because in the mind of the wife, if she humiliates him, he'll be so emasculated he'll let her have everything if they divorced. Also, she didn't just send it to him, she sent to his friends and family and some of her friends' family. It was thought she was either on drugs or just very vindictive. Her lawyer wasn't happy when he found out about the videos. He just thought it was a normal divorce. I did some personal injury stuff before I went into teaching. This wasn't my client, but rather the person trying to sue them for 7 figures. I imagine his lawyers wouldn't have been too pleased with the fact he failed to mention the 2 reality TV shows he'd been on since the accident. He was trying to claim 7 figures for a brain injury that supposedly ruined his life, yet half the country had watched him be perfectly fine on TV, and a quick Google brought all that up to us. Trail was supposed to last 3 days. We were done by that afternoon. I was involved in a hit and run car accident. My leg was pretty mangled. However, the driver of the car was caught. Turns out he was a rich kid who was driving his mum's convertible pork. Denied all knowledge of hitting me, etc. At the trial, the prosecutor asked him how long he had been driving, to which he answered, "Do you mean how long have I been driving legally or illegally?" The judge then went nuts asking why and when he had been driving illegally. His defense team sat down in their chairs and shook their heads. Needless to say, he lost the case. Interestingly, he died a year later by drowning. He had hired speedboat and holiday, flipped it over and drowned. Turns out he was drunk at the time. Karma can be a cunt. Not a lawyer. My parents had a long messy divorce that took 2.5 years in court. My dad claimed that my mother was trying to take 100% of everything based on a settlement offer she sent him. He failed to mention to his lawyers that her initial offer, sent to his previous lawyers, was a 60/40 split, and she only sent that 100% one in response to an equally unreasonable offer from him. As soon as she could prove the initial offer was reasonable, the judge just basically ruled on everything according to that first offer. His lawyers were so angry because they built their entire case around the idea that she was the unreasonable one. Client in family law matter lied to me about using meth. Then used meth with the child in the room, and the ex got footage of it on the nanny cam and then made excuses about why they couldn't do a drug test, then blamed me when they lost custody, despite the fact that they didn't show up to appointments or return my calls, so I couldn't prepare any court material. I dumped the client after that and left family law. Not me, but my dad represented a guy in a civil case. He doesn't normally do criminal law, but in this instance the question of a forged signature came up, and his client lied, saying he didn't forge it. My dad was very clear in explaining that admitting to him wouldn't land him in jail, it would just allow him to build a better defense, but he still denied forgery, and so my dad rolled with it. He said his case was completely cut up once it came out that yes, in fact, his client did forge the signature. Guys and gals, your lawyers aren't a snitch, they're trying to get you the best possible result. Always be honest to your lawyer. I'm a patent attorney in the UK. Rule number 1 of patent clubbies, that you need to keep your idea secret until you file the patent application. The US has some allowances for the inventor publishing their own invention, but these are weird and specific to the US. It absolutely doesn't apply here in the UK, where publishing your idea before applying for a patent means no patent. I had an inventor who wanted to send me an explanation of his invention so that I could draft an application for him. Inexplicably, rather than zip up all his materials and email them over, he prepared them as a web page which he put on his personal site, then emailed me a link to that. He literally sent the materials to me by publishing them. As it happened, it was a crazy idea that we almost certainly couldn't have protected, and he saved himself the cost of my initial review by torpedoing his own application before it was filed. Clients have done some dumb things over the years, but this instance really stood out. Not mine, but saw it in r/entity literates. The case was about a woman who took the car from her daughter and grounded her. The daughter called the police and the court proceedings began. Apparently the woman didn't tell her lawyer that the daughter was 22 years old and didn't live with her mom. The mom decided to go to the daughter's place and took her car out without her knowledge. We were seeking, among other things, a freezing order over $30 million assets that were at risk of being dissipated. There was a foreign judgment for debt that we needed to have recognized and enforced. Our client was a well-reputed foreign lawyer who insisted the appeal period for that foreign judgment had long passed, and it was therefore imperative that we make all these applications now. Instead of properly doing our own independent research, we relied on our client's word regarding the appeal period. In reality, there were 2 appeal periods, and while the first had indeed passed, the second was still outstanding, meaning we could not seek to have the foreign judgment recognized and enforced just yet per our own court rules. We did actually realize the error before we went to a hearing, due to an associate on our team having a hunch something was off, and another associate actually being able to read procedural rules in the relevant foreign language. But we did have to adjourn the hearing and entirely redo many of our pleadings and affidavits, during which time the defendant did indeed dump a bunch of his assets, leaving us with a mostly dry judgment. When I was a law student, I interned for a judge. One of the cases we were observing was an illegal lockout case, where this owner of a franchise location for an international cafe company claimed the landlord/owner of the right to issue franchises in the US happened to be same guy. Just one day locked him. Franchise owner out. Landlord had claimed the franchise owner was selling unapproved merchandise with the company's logo on it. For 2 days all we are hearing is about these cups the plaintiff allegedly made. Argument was that counterfeit merch violated terms of franchise and lease, which meant terminating both. Finally, the landlord is on the stand. The defense pulls out a shopping bag as he's about to introduce evidence. Me and the other interns are so excited. For 2 days we've been hearing about these fucking cups, and the landlord suddenly can't remember where he got the cups from. In response to one question he says he got them at the cafe. In another he says the corporate office gave it to him. Since he raised doubt about the source of the cups, the judge wouldn't let them in, and we never got to see them. The defense had to sadly put the bag away back into his briefcase. So yeah, lesson learned. Prepare your fucking witnesses, especially when you're trying to introduce critical evidence.